Today, we're going to be talking about some sad stuff and why you, yes, you, the viewer, won't be winning the championship this season. And unfortunately, what we're here to describe is that it was your actions that has led to you not winning the championship. And we want to be honest with you guys. We want to tell you guys as it is. Tell you guys maybe why you won't be winning the championship this year and how you can learn from that and win next year. So let's start with Manager Corona. Could you explain your reason on why the viewer won't be winning the championship this season?
Yeah, of course. So one big reasoning I have is managers could be too scared to make moves in the fantasy football season. They like to stick with what they got, not change anything about it. And the definition of insanity is when you keep repeating something and the result does not change. So you don't want to let fear hold you back from making these waiver wire claims or trades in fantasy football. There could be secret weapons stored right there, opportunities to, pivot your team into success. And it's not just about replacing players, it's about being proactive. It's about adapting to how the NFL landscape is also changing. And you can strengthen weakened spots, capitalize on emerging talent, and take, calculated risks. But remember, you gotta be dynamic. You can't be, timid. You can't be scared to make a move in fantasy football because there's so many possibilities. There's so many players you can lose out on when you do not make a move. So embrace that waiver wire and the trades with confidence next time around, and know that making bold moves it could be the key to unlocking your team's future potential and earning yourself a championship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's just sometimes I get frustrated looking at other rosters in my leagues, just saying, man, if I had those assets, I'd be making moves 1, 2, and 3, and we'd be off to a championship. And you're just standing there, just looking at the manager like, when are you going to make a move? So being timid is definitely something you want to avoid, and maybe why you're not in a position to win the championship currently. But there is the other side of things. And Manager FanDuel, do you want to describe how maybe being on the other side of being timid could also impact your success?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, Manager Corona laid out everything beautifully on the one hand, how, it can hurt you if you're too timid, but as a manager, you have to play this fine line and straddle this fence where you cannot also be overly aggressive. One thing that I was always taught is once you pull the trigger and the bullet leaves the barrel, you can never bring it back, right? So once you make that deal and you hit accept, it's done. It's in motion now. Nothing is going to undo that deal. So you better have thought through everything before agreeing to and accepting that deal, which you would with another manager. Make sure that you're filling the requisite holes that need to be filled at appropriate commensurate value. You're not overpaying. Ideally, you're underpaying if possible, but making sure, kind of like what Manager Cronin was also saying earlier, understanding the ever-changing dynamic of the NFL landscape. Week to week, things are constantly changing and moving, and you cannot get caught up or too engrossed in the microcosm of 1 week. 1 week is never going to be a true indicator, but the consistency of the weeks stacked up. So always make sure to remember that when you're a manager prior to accepting any deal out there.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in that, where I know that I can't necessarily influence my team's week, this week's performance, but I know I can influence my team's week over week performance. When it's the law of averages, really. Over time, everything's going to average out, and if you're above average in your performance, that's going to skew that way. So yes, you could get unlucky, but I completely agree with you, Manager FanDuel. And you guys today have the sayings ready, with the definition of insanity and the bullet barrel. I love it. Manager Chipotle, moving on to you. What's your reason that the viewer won't be winning the championship this season?
Yeah, so I would say one of the main reasons is you got to have Fab, and obviously this is for the people that have Fab in their leagues. If you're low on Fab, I mean, it's hard to say you're going to win a championship. I mean, I think minimum you should be around the 15, 20 mark in the postseason, or even more than that, ideally. Injuries tend to creep up late, especially this season, and we've seen, week 13 was probably as rough as it was as it could be for, injuries, and those lineups could get depleted, real fast. I think it's best to be smart with your Fab. Don't put up like 30, 35 dollars worth of Fab on one player in like week early in the week, and can get depleted just because you're banking on that one player. Try to be smart, try to use it wisely, especially with the trade deadline. The second half of the year, you're shut down from retaining talent in that form. You're only set to picking up guys off the waiver wire. So if you don't have any money to spend, you're kind of in a tough spot. So I would say Fab and money management is definitely one of the big keys in terms of having a sustainable roster week in week out, especially if you're making that deep championship run.
Yeah, very well said, Mayor Chipotle. I do agree with you where I think 20% Fab into the playoffs is a great area to be in. It gives you that flexibility. And I think a lot of reason why you would be picking up players, it has to do with my reason and why I think managers this season aren't going to be winning the championship is because they simply were not prepared for injuries. A lot of managers in my time, I've noticed how they blame injuries on their performance. And I have one thing to say. Why weren't you prepared for that injury? Assume every player is going to get injured. And once that injury happens, it's bad luck. No, it isn't. It's preparedness, being prepared. And I think managers really need to focus on that. They can't start making predictions on who's going to get injured. Oh, CMC is going to be fine this year because he was fine last year, or CMC is going to get injured because he was injured last year. You just have to assume the worst and then have a plan to be ready. So I think a lot of playoff teams, even right now, with the week of injuries that we just had, are about to be exposed in the playoffs and just simply beat by teams that are healthier, that were prepared, and had more depth. So I really recommend managers to have that extra running back depth, have that extra wide receiver depth. It's going to be annoying, but when that injury happens, you're going to be thanking yourself. So I think those are the 4 reasons that you won't be winning your fantasy football championship this season. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button and follow us on Commissioner Plus on both Instagram and TikTok. And until next time, thank you.